What is up, folks? It is your boy Turk here at SGN Hub, bringing you another special interview with the co-founder of ESG Football, Ray himself. Ladies and gentlemen, feel free to introduce yourself.
What's going on, guys? Again, Turk, thank you for having me. Really looking forward to getting into this, so let's jump right into it.
Of course. For the people that are viewing, we have a lot of these questions really broken down into little subsections so we can kind of cover things one by one. So first and foremost, I'd like to ask maybe a question or two about the development and the progress since our last interview. It's been quite some time, obviously, since the last time we spoke. So from your opinion, what would you say, since our last interview, would be a major milestone that ESG and the dev team has really stepped across that you think you're really proud of personally?
Well, I think in terms of the last time we spoke, we were at that point obviously already in the PlayStation testing, So with that being said, in terms of where our latest major milestone has been, is that we are internally playing on Xbox right now. The team is playing there. Yeah, so we're playing on Xbox, and again, some people wonder, like, why not just do them both at the same time? I think the most important thing to note there is that because we are an indie studio and we're a very, very small team, it kind of speaks to doing two things at once. And when looking at Xbox and PlayStation in this generation, in terms of the consoles, they are more different than they have been in years prior or generations prior. So because of that, in the old days, they were a little bit more similar, and as a result of which you could do both at the same exact time. But in terms of optimizations, exactly, it's not one-to-one, and we just needed to make sure that we were doing things one step at a time to not bite off more than we can chew from that perspective. So now that we're actually there and playing on Xbox internally, really looking forward then to opening up the doors to the community so that they're able to get in there and obviously test the game while we're actually out on the PlayStation for open beta.
Okay, awesome. Now, from a developmental standpoint, like you said, like having, different things, probably like different obstacles that you come across on PlayStation to Xbox, from like an input standard, do you feel like a comfort zone is more for you on PlayStation or Xbox? Do you feel more comfortable as of now playing the game on Xbox or PlayStation, given the state that it's in?
Well, I feel like that question is for gamers as divisive on whether you're going to be a Republican or a Democrat, if you're Xbox or PlayStation. But growing up, I would say that I was both. I was actually both users, but I leaned towards professional gaming with Xbox. I'm one of the few people who feels that like the thumb being higher up actually helped me more in terms of how I wanted to be precise with the gameplay on the left stick, as opposed to the lower thumb on PlayStation. But I loved both consoles because, I mean, really, that including also, like, not to date myself here, but also like things like Dreamcast and things like that. I really just preferred all the consoles myself. I was just a huge nerd in terms of gaming, but just being able to get on both now is important to me, because in the up until the point of ESG, I hadn't even had the newest PlayStation 5. So that's what actually, got me to get in there as we started development of everything. So I was typically Xbox prior to PlayStation in the newer consoles.
So I know this is like probably a lot further down the line now, with you guys essentially taking some of the developmental process over to Xbox. Will that assist you guys, further down the road and potentially with a PC port, or is that something that's kind of back burner for the time being? I know that there are some similarities, I guess, with the OS or the availability of Xbox and the mixing of Microsoft and PC. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I don't want to imply that like PC by any means is like the easiest, but it was actually one of the first things that we were able to address the game on. And as you remember, that was the first time that we let you guys play the game as well, was on PC. For us, in terms of our release and why we're not there yet, is number one, like I said before, we started with PC. So in terms of the evolutionary steps, it was first PC, then PlayStation, and then Xbox. So that was just the path that we chose to go with things. So once we're done with PlayStation and Xbox, then we can certainly circle back to PC. I'm certainly very excited about getting the game on PC for open beta. The thing about it is, at this time, as I mentioned before, while the PC community is fantastic and 99% of the community is certainly well intended, the thing is that in terms of the intent for the 1%, where there's potentially negative mods or gameplays or hacks, that's where, again, we just have to be really, really cognizant of what could go wrong. When you're an indie studio, again, it's about what can go wrong more than what can go right. So because of that, console just has certain protections that are a little bit more appropriate for us at this size and stage.
A lot more
and again,
safeguards.
Exactly. While 99% of the community in the PC space is really just advantageous to what it is that we're trying to do, we just have to be careful for that 1% that may not have
Absolutely.
that same intent.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like that's definitely like a slippery slope to follow. I know there's a lot of people that had initially played the PC test and they're like, oh, PC test, PC that, but they're just the availability to make your own individual changes. I feel like it really dissuades a lot of developers these days from not necessarily going to PC. If you have a game that you intend to release on PC, you do it. But I feel like whenever you have games that are console ports moving to PC, it definitely adds that little bit of a gray area where you're like, all right, is this something that we can step
Yeah,
into?
you just have to be careful.
Yeah.
You just have to be careful. Yeah.
So with the most recent playtest, obviously it's been on PS5 for quite some time now. How far along do you feel like you guys have came, with the influence of the newer testers? A lot of people that are hopping in that aren't people that have been around from day one. Do you feel like you're getting a lot more fresh opinions on the game and direction?
I do. I think early on when we had people come in and play, whether it be PC or early PlayStation, it was people that were, essentially just signed up for the stream team or signed up to be content
Yeah.
creators with us and, really believed in the vision from day one. So at that point, I felt like everyone was really excited and I was happy to see the small wins that we have. And of course, it was the earliest version of the game. So they had to also go through the most growing pains with us, but they were all really, really excited to be there. And then not to say that the people who came in afterwards weren't as excited by any means, but they didn't know us and our journey as well. So they can be just a little bit more blunt in their opinions as opposed to just trying to be like empathetic towards Ray and Lamont and the work that we put in all this time. So I think that was really important to see other people come in and, have all various ranges of opinions on what they felt that the game should be and could be over time. So I think that was really important to grow the community from that perspective. And as we've just talked about briefly, once you do that with different consoles, that's also something that's really important. So seeing that the Xbox users come in and give their opinions on things is also going to be integral to our growth over time.
So for, while we're, I guess, on the topic of community and stuff like that, I guess we could hop more into the playtesting from your perspective alone. Obviously ESG offers a completely unique experience. What do you think, in terms of gameplay systems, have evolved since the earlier days that you see that players are really experiencing? Yeah, I know we've had, a lot, especially one big one for me is obviously the field awareness. Are you seeing a lot of people adapt to that really quickly, create their own way to play the game, or is there still a little bit like of a harder learning curve?
Well, I think it's a two-part answer. The first part of that is that we anticipated it being a bit of a learning curve in certain places, and as a result of which, that's where we wanted to have differing lobbies. So you have the novice lobby, the intermediate lobby, and also the competitive lobby, because we wanted the skill gap that some people would aim to get to not necessarily be for everybody, right? And we also knew that, people in gaming, and especially in sports video games, have oftentimes said, I'm the best in the world, or I'm the best, out of all my friends, and so on and so forth. So we wanted to say, well, let's really lean into that and give them an opportunity through skill gap to really provide that proof that you're saying I'm the best wide receiver or tight end or running back or lineman or quarterback, and not just have it all feel the same from position to position in terms of nuance. So to go down that road and have it be really in depth in terms of skill gap also provides the counterpoint to that, which is, what if someone isn't looking to do that? What if they're just essentially looking to have a good time, they're more recreational, or they're just more novice in terms of this is the first time that they've ever picked up your football video game, let alone any football video game. So we had to be cognizant of that as well, and that's where the novice and intermediate lobbies come into, where you're able to focus more on just like the left stick instead of the right stick of what you're doing, and there's less penalty in what you're doing. The attributes aren't judged the same exact way as harshly as they are in the competitive modes. So we feel like that was really important to get right. And of course, we're always going to grow from that perspective. We're going to have, like I said before, growing pains and have things that we had to essentially go back to the drawing board on. But those are the first things that I felt were really, really important to get right is, can you address the hardcore competitive gamer, but at the same exact time, make it inviting for the novice gamer or the recreational gamer that's coming in brand new potentially.
So for, while we're on the topic, how do you and the dev team, how do you guys personally go about, I guess, balancing the game and getting feedback from whether it be longtime playtesters, novice, beginner, expert, like not necessarily which one do you feel like takes precedent, but how do you guys go about analyzing that feedback and deciding, okay, the competitive players are seeing this particular issue with, like, let's just say for instance, like, the speed stat, but you're not seeing that complaint in any levels of play other than just the highest level. How do you go about like separating things to where you feel as if they are in that sweet spot to really be fully fleshed out and just given to everyone?
Yeah, so I think the first thing is that, have 100 people, you'll have 100 different opinions as well, right? So
Mhm.
that's the number one thing, is that you're never going to make everyone happy, but we certainly understood that there are groups, and kind of speaking on what I had just mentioned before, where you have the hyper competitive
Mhm.
hardcore gamer
Yeah.
versus the gamer who's just looking to have more fun and not take it as seriously and just wants to pick up the sticks and, not have so much strict behavior in terms of the stick or whatever the case may be. So we really try to group it into different sections where, again, also in that conversation, you can say someone who's a 99 overall versus someone who's a 60 overall and who's brand new, right? So
Yeah.
with those things being said, we had to understand that, yes, everyone has a differing opinion. People are going to come from it from all different walks of life in terms of gameplay, but at
Mhm.
the same exact time, we also wanted to help separate that a little bit so people could have fun and not just see it as like this polar opposite difference in terms of the
Yes.
actual gameplay. So that was the first thing. And then, even with that being said, when you have competitive gamers amongst competitive gamers or novices amongst novices, they're still going to have differing opinions. And we
Mhm.
want to hear all of it, because at the end of the day, it's always about growth for us at the company. We feel that no matter what, we want to provide as much as we can, even though it's going to happen in stages. And it's not going to
Mhm.
happen immediately in the first quarter or second quarter, even the first year or second year. That's really important for us as to how we position ourselves within the community, how we essentially align with everyone and saying, okay, we want to hear all the feedback. We would prefer that it's productive criticism as opposed to
Yeah.
the
'Cause
alternative to that. But
negative,
at the
no
end of the day,
solution.
yeah, exactly. But at the end of the day, we understand that the community is passionate about them wanting new experiences and
Mhm.
things like that. So just always being open to that. That's exactly why we have the Discord. That's exactly why myself and Lamont have made ourselves as available to the
Yeah.
community as possible. And I think that that's really integral to our growth, is hearing everybody, but also just like, if you went to, and that's not to speak down on any other company, but if you
Mhm.
had opinions for Fortnite, or you had opinions for Madden, or opinions for FIFA, I don't necessarily know who you go to directly.
Yeah.
You just
Yeah.
kind of like put it out there,
You
right?
just hope
And then
someone
you
sees
after,
it.
yeah, just
Yeah.
someone sees it and picks it up. I have no problem in letting people within our Discord know exactly who I am, and having them feel access to me, to even message me at 2 a.m. I'm gonna get back to you
Yeah.
and hear what's happening. So I think that's really important to be a part of the community, because this is what I grew up in my entire life.
Yeah. I definitely could see that as like a positive, especially being a part of, the smaller dev team, being the head developer. You get a really good, like, I guess you could say, like, boots on the ground, like, opinion or observation of the way somebody's articulating a problem to you. So you can more than likely go back and tell your devs and the people that are going to be making these changes probably in the best way possible. You know what I mean? You can, rather than it being a randomly voiced complaint, I can definitely see the advantages of that. Now, talking about, like you said, things not coming immediately, coming in stages. If we're talking about like a launch path timeline, as we do get closer to the PS5 launch, I know that's coming first. What benchmarks or points where the game is polished that you feel like the game needs to personally be before it's ready to hit the public? I know that it's different between having a conjoined Xbox and PlayStation launch, but what do you feel needs to happen on PlayStation before you can have that almost conjoined community of Xbox and PlayStation alongside each other, or before you can switch the focal point over to the second console?
Yeah, so I think for us, in terms of PS5, I feel that we are at a place now that we can launch for
Okay.
the
Yes.
soft open, if you will, of PlayStation 5, and get the community to have their hands on it at a much broader spectrum.
Mhm.
And from there, again, that's not to suggest that we're perfect. That's not to suggest that we're going to make you happy as a gamer from every single aspect of what you're looking for in a football video game. Because, again, we are a very, very, very small company. For 95% of our journey, we had 1 to 2 engineers work on this game. So it's like, again, tempering expectations is incredibly important.
Yeah.
However, if you're looking for a competitive environment to play against your friends or other people, we feel that we've had the early stages of doing exactly
yeah,
what
without a doubt.
you're going to look for from that perspective. And I think the community who has played the game will agree with that.
Without a doubt.
So with that being said, it's about, first off, getting more people in to hear those opinions, and also stress tests, which is going to be a focal point. Right now, and potentially having hundreds or the lower number of thousands of people playing the game, that's where you're stress testing to that number and that capacity. And should we be fortunate one day to have millions, if not, several million people play at the same exact time, well, that's going to be an entirely different level of stress. So as you grow with that, it essentially becomes something that you learn to say, okay, where do we need to go back to the drawing board, whether it comes to our, networking or our stability or whatever the case may be. And again, it's always going to be a learning process, essentially a baptism by fire, where you're learning as you go. So that's really important for us and also the community potentially to understand.
Okay.
But as it comes down to Xbox, naturally that would come after all the things that we're talking about for PlayStation. But again, just to reiterate, on PlayStation, we feel that we're there now, and we're really looking forward to essentially getting that rookie season out of the way.
Yes.
When you have a phenomenal athlete in college who is a Heisman winner and so on and so forth, they're still going to come in day one as good as they are and have their growing pains
Absolutely.
in year one as a rookie, right? So for us, we're not winning the Heisman. We don't have that type of budget off the jump, but still we're coming into that upper echelon now that we're going to have to go through our growing pains, and we're looking forward to that.
So starting off, like you said, what it looks like for you and as a dev team is really important. Like, success is an extremely subjective thing, especially in my opinion, when you're bringing something brand new to the table. What do you feel like success for you personally? Does that look like at day one for ESG? Do you think it's player numbers, gameplay balance, feedback, or something completely different? You know what I mean? What is that? What do you feel like success would be for you?
Yeah, I think incredibly loaded. I think phenomenal question, but definitely loaded in terms of the answer, because number one, we're in a position where we're getting to release. We certainly know that our long-term vision of the game, that's not where the game is today in day one. So we can't judge it against where we'll be in year 5 or year 10, but we also have to understand that, as we know for many football video games, let alone other video games as well, some of them are not fortunate to get to year 5 or year 10, right? So the way you build out and essentially the way you have your business model potentially could prevent you from getting to year 5 and year 10 if you're just putting too much early on in the beginning, right? So that's where we had to make sure that we're really trying to not only find the right type of partners, investors, employees that see the long-term vision here in terms of the growth, which is super important. At the same exact time, we also would prefer and hope that the community kind of sees that as well. So it's not going to be everything that they expected, as I mentioned before, but that's in terms of that level of success. We're not judging it against what year 5 and year 10 is going to be. In terms of what year 1 is going to be for what we are, I really am proud, incredibly proud of our entire team that has worked on this project, whether that be people for motion capture, whether that be professional athletes hopping on for motion capture, whether that be, because there's a lot of things that those guys had to learn too. Like, they didn't know so much in terms of that space. But, with that being said, also the employees and obviously the community, the testers and so on and so forth, I think that the Discord has grown tremendously, not only in size, but in maturation. I feel that the majority of the Discord members that have come in here at day one, they were a bunch of hyper competitive people looking to win, where if they didn't win, they would essentially crash out and argue with each other and go back and forth for hours. And the things that you and I have heard in that Discord were wild. But now I really truly feel like it's a brotherhood in that community.
Without a doubt, man.
You know what I mean?
It's
and I
nice
think
to observe that. It really is.
And I can't take credit for that, but I could certainly say that I'm very proud of that we have that space. So that's what I'm looking to grow upon, and that's essentially what success means for me, that growth. If we're able to see that growth, we're able to continue to grow. That to me is the biggest thing, because again, it's not about the destination, not to be corny, but it's certainly about the journey. And that's where we're going to have to take that step by step. And I feel happy and proud of the game, but again, step by step, we will get better.
I honestly, that's a really good answer, because the thing that, I think about comparatively, and it's not saying comparatively as in, that is similar to Madden or 2K or anything, because the thing that is really unique, not all obviously about it, is it's all user driven, and you're not playing with like immediate NFL players. So it's not like you're waiting on a yearly release of ESG. You know what I mean? It's not, you're not going to be waiting on ESG to come out next August. You're not going to wait, but finding that zone that I feel like I draw a lot of parallels between between my experience between the early inception of Fortnite and this game, solely just because of like it really is. I think a lot of people think I'm like bloviating or just saying like something I've no, but it is really a completely different experience. Like I don't know what else to how else to really put it, because it is like you're really carving your own land. You're beyond just the game itself, even like launch patterns or like updates and all that stuff, because they're not going to be coming in the same exact styles of the game. So that's a very interesting way to put that. I like that, the idea, especially building upon community. I think you'll definitely get a lot further whenever you make those your priority, the things that you prioritize, especially in this gaming market as a smaller developer.
I mean, just to speak to that real quick, I feel that, again, us in the football video game community, right? We're clearly here because we love football video games. We love what essentially maybe when we were younger, maybe not so much now, maybe more now than when we were younger. It's all still at the end of the day, we're choosing to be a part of this community. And I think what we would all agree on, regardless, is we would want more day by day, step by step, incrementally, whether that's a ton or a little bit, we're still always looking to aspire to have more for the community. And that growth essentially takes all of us. And again, that's not me speaking to the rest of the community telling what that they need to do, but I can certainly tell you that for ESG, when it comes to the content creators, they were a massive part in terms of the virality of what ESG essentially got out there to the world. And you know what I mean, like people found out about ESG because of content creators, because of yes, like yourself, Bummy, Stick God, Pat, you know, whoever the case may be, and we're incredibly indebted to them. But the thing is that they led the charge in that department, which was a part of the strategy, was always discussed, but at the same exact time, that enabled us to focus more on the gameplay, right? So we came to a decision to say, look, this is where, as a team, we're going to come together and we're going to grow together. There was upside for those content creators who did what they did. There was upside for us because we can focus on the gameplay. And now, naturally, I completely understand the community saying, we want the game out yesterday. You know, so do I. But at the end of the day, like, it's going to have to happen in its stride. And again, that took a community to make something happen. It wasn't Ray, it wasn't Lamont, it wasn't just the internal dev team of ESG or the art team. It was definitely the community as a whole. So I think that's why we're all here. Exactly. And I think that's the best thing about it. If we can get that experience from this space, then I mean, that to me is the biggest part of it all, is that growth aspect of it.
Absolutely. So going down like the line, how important do you feel personally it is for ESG to simply not be just a game? I know you've spoken about it being a platform, a place for creators to really, I guess you could say, express, you know, who they want to be within the game, or express themselves to their best, you know, their best ability within the game. But also, like you said, a platform that does evolve with, you know, more community-driven updates, content. And I know there's a lot of rumblings and a lot of stuff obviously going on with league style play. How do you roll that out to the general public as just not simply competitive players or a ranked mode, but people that are genuinely trying to get into something seriously competitive beyond just a ranked mode?
Yeah, so it sounds like two parts of questions. One would being obviously the league, which is the latter one, and the other thing is in terms of where we're growing and what we want to be in terms of being in our own lane, right? So I'll address the where we want to be in terms of being our own lane first. Just in terms of where we want to be and carve out our own lane is, for me, for anyone who does not know, I was obviously a recreational gamer like all of us, but then I became a competitive player, all the way then becoming a professional gamer where I was paid to travel the country and play video games. And I was very, very fortunate to do well in that space. And then naturally, you know, to the point where I became a content creator. And then, of course, now I own a video game studio where myself and my co-founder Lamont, who is another content creator with a pretty substantial, shout out to Clutch. You know, with that being said, you know, we're very, very fortunate to be gamers and be able to advance in our career in this space. Like, that's not a given. So when you're that fortunate to do the things that you love, at least for me, it becomes about at that point, well, how do you get everybody else in on this, right? And that's really important for us, whether it's the content creators, whether it's the gamers, whether it's people who are phenomenal artists and never had access to go work for a AAA studio, now giving us concept art for what they're doing in terms, you know, in terms of the gameplay and the skins and the characters and so on and so forth. So for me, it's about how do we get everyone in on this? Because if everyone's having a good time, then it's growth for everybody, like I said before. So in terms of carving our own lane, we're really truly not trying to be anyone else. At the same time, we pull from everyone else and try to, you know, get inspired by everything around us, while at the same time trying to have our own identity. But the core principle of what it is that we're trying to do is provide a great gaming experience to everyone, which will come in time over and over, better and better throughout the years and throughout the quarters. But that's the first thing. And then second thing is, like I said before, provide financial recourse for content creators, influencers, athletes, you know, gamers in general, artists, because it's possible. It's very, very possible. We're doing it now and we haven't even released. So that's really, really important in terms of the lane that we're looking to carve out, is just to be ourselves, pull from a little bit of the great stuff from everybody, including the Fortnites or the EAs or whatever the case may be in terms of whatever features they have that we admire, and then make it our own, right? And see how we essentially can make the community happy. In terms of the latter part of the question, which was, you know, one thing that we're doing with that is the league and in getting people to be involved in that league. Well, for myself and for Lamont, we met in a, you know, competitive environment for, you know, football video games, and we naturally hit it off and said, you know, this is a community that we want to be a part of, and we then formed a crew, and I'm very grateful to that crew. And again, like I said before, traveling the country and being in that brotherhood. So I know how much that meant for me, not only as an individual, but as a gamer as well. So to provide that to other people is a phenomenal, feeling that I would
absolutely.
have. But the thing about our game that is different is, as you know, it's not one versus one, right? Where if you were to potentially play in a lot of video games, that's what you might see from a professional perspective. Here, it's 7v7 or 11v11.
Mhm.
And to have that many people together, that means a lot of pros and cons. When you're losing, potentially arguing and figuring it out. But when you really mature as a team and work together as a team, then all the pros of that, building that brotherhood up, obviously potentially reaching the highest heights with that group of people, there's nothing better than that. So I think that's the big thing about that league that I've seen so far, is that, again, there's always growth and maturation, but people coming together to get to their goal, even if that means it's in a video game where they have to out strategize
Yeah,
their opponents, is incredibly rewarding.
it is.
And that's where I think the league is really important, because it provides that for everybody. So, again, I give credit to the community. I give credit to SGN and their team, because it's not an ESG thing solely. It's a community thing. And the community came together to make that happen. It wasn't a Ray and Lamont thing. And SGN really helped lead the charge in that. So I give a ton of credit. And at the same time, I'm forever indebted to that.
Yeah. Much appreciated, even though, I'm a little back burner. I come in to get the analysis, things like that. So I guess you'd like kind of touching on some aspects of that question. It would be, I guess, your bigger picture, future, but it really just ultimately includes some of that. I feel like it applies to it. How do you personally see ESG's role, in the broader football gaming landscape? Not really just as a competitor or as a culture builder in its own right, because I personally see a lot of potentiality. I know how we see how viral like the 2K Parks and Recs memes are, and just things like that. People talking about the game, like the memes that come up about smaller things like that. How do you see ESG developing, in terms of, like you said, like I said, the community aspect of it, or building culture within the football genre itself?
Yeah, ultimately, I want it all, right? Like that's the thing that you can say when you're excited in a space and you love the space that you're in, that you just want to try to provide as much to the community as possible, right? That's ultimately that doesn't happen in day one, right? Like they say, Rome wasn't built in a day, right? So with that being said, it has to be one of those things that it's like, instead of saying like you bit off more than you can chew, it's like, well, it's all there for you on the plate. You just got to have to, knock it down as it goes, because at the end of the day, it's not going to all happen in one sitting, right? So that's essentially for us where we have to understand that we have a ton of aspiration here, but it's going to come, step by step.
Absolutely.
But in terms of what I could see this being, again, it becomes natural when you look at the fact that you have 11 on 11. And you look at the fact that there's potentially league play, there's potentially, a broader spectrum of that, where you're saying, well, whether it's an esport league or whether it's teams, there's a lot of that goes into league play that's not just the team itself, whether it's content, whether it's the commentary, whether it's the art teams, or whether it's, the marketing behind that. So again, for people to be a part of that from that spectrum is important, because there's growth all outside of just being nice on the sticks. So that's, one major thing. In terms of the actual gameplay itself, again, naturally, we really want to be as flushed out a game as possible. I can't get too deep into what it is from, competitive perspectives, but we certainly have not only a vision for this year, we naturally have a vision for next year, the year beyond, but we also have a 10-year vision that it's very clearly iterated upon. So, that's the major thing for us, is to get to year 10, to get to year 15, year 20, but at the same time, enjoy it along the way. And again, we go as far as the community will allow us to. So we're hoping that, they're down for that ride as well.
Absolutely. I'm one thing that when you say the 10-year plan, I know as of right now, Bungie may not be the most shining example as a developer in terms of what they're doing. But I remember I always found that was one of the, as much as, your opinion of it may or may not be, the game Destiny 1 or 2 has lasted as long as they said that, that it would. And I think having like a long-term goal like that it really sets your priorities straight. It really gives you a good opportunity to figure out where you want to be, and in this, I guess you could say, in the inception of the game. So having like a longer plan like that, I wonder if other developers have a 10-year plan similar to like you guys and Bungie and whatnot.
I'm sure some people do.
Yeah.
I think one thing for us is that, at this stage, and hopefully will always be the case, is that the founders are incredibly close to the process.
Yeah.
That's not always the case for companies as they get to 5, 10, 15, 20 years.
The problem.
Yeah, and that oftentimes could be the problem, right? So it becomes more, shareholder driven and things like that, and less about the gaming community, which was essentially created in a company which was probably some gamer themselves, right?
Yeah.
So for us, it's always an integral focus to be like, hey, look, we know why we're doing this. And yeah, if you have a good, successful product, like I'm sure, money will come, but For myself and Lamont, that's not the focus. Like, again, whether someone believes this or not, we have not taken a salary this entire time. That goes 100% to our team, as of course they naturally have to get paid for their work, right? But but for myself and Lamont, that's not the focus here. The focus is a long-term vision, because truth be told, we love gaming so much that we would have competed and traveled for free. We were fortunate to then sign deals. We loved gaming so much that we would have done content for free. We were fortunate to then obviously get paid off of that. So our mindset is not the money first and then the happiness. It's love what we're doing, and then naturally, the money follows. So for us, we're just trying to take it step by step and do right by the community.
So I guess you say, getting towards some of the closing questions, I want to particular, I like forming this question to the developer itself, because I feel like it gives you, not necessarily just you, really anybody, an opportunity to really express how they would feel as like a consumer outside looking in. What message or what would you use to really, I guess you could say, convey? Because it's never, I feel like, your job to just flat out convince somebody to come play your game. You don't want to have somebody come play your game and be like, yeah, man, come check it out. It's probably not for you. But what would you send to a player who's ultimately been waiting, I guess you say, from earlier tests, or somebody that's kind of been looking from the fence that is now looking to play the game as we do get closer to that soft launch? What do you think that you bring to the table more, you could confidently say more now than you could say in the earlier inception of PC beta signups?
Well, I think the first message that I would send to any gamer or anyone who's hearing this is, first and foremost, I greatly appreciate your patience. Even if you haven't been the most patient at some times, it's our job to get you the product yesterday. It's not your job to want to wait for it forever. So I completely understand people who have an interest in this game wanting to play it already. And I'm very, very grateful for that. I think the other thing is that in terms of the things that we know and we don't know, is just that there's a process from this, especially when you're building it from the ground up and having a certain foundation. And that's why, again, when you're not willing to take on the wrong partners, it could lengthen the road ahead of you in terms of getting to a release. And sometimes in video games, we've seen this plenty. I'm going to start rattling off a bunch of games, and I bet you a bunch of people are going to be fond of the games that I'm mentioning right now. But if you talk about Tecmo Super Bowl, Quarterback Club, Blitz, his NFL Street, Game Day, like a lot of these games, NFL Fever, a lot of these games are near and dear to our hearts, and they don't exist anymore, right? And it's not just because of an exclusive license. There are other reasons as well. So what I'm saying behind that is, if you don't structure things right, sometimes you could find yourself being shelved. And for myself and Lamont, knowing that we don't have all the power in the world to just be like, no, that's never going to happen. We had to go by a very specific framework to make sure that ESG would not be a one-year thing. That's the biggest thing for us. And to do that is very, very difficult, and that takes time. So that was where, again, people saying, I've heard about this game already. I want this game to be released. I'm tired of hearing about it without release or showing certain things. I think, again, there are some variables to this that we're not as privy to, or to the community, where we have to be incredibly protective of the IP that we have, because we don't see our IP being a one-year thing, or we don't want our IP to be something that's exploited over time. So I'm incredibly, grateful for the community's patience in that. I'm incredibly, grateful for the content creators who continue to spread the word, because they had some context to that. But again, at the end of the day, it's their voices and their names and their brands that are speaking up for ESG to the community when the community may not know that. So that's, a very big message. That is the first message that I would say to the community. In terms of the actual gameplay and why you would want to play it, I think what's really important is, again, early on, this game is a certain thing. And it's not other things. So if you're looking to play a franchise mode experience, again, hearing it from the founder, this is not yet the game for you. But at the same exact time, if you're looking to play in a competitive environment against other people in real time, I believe this is the game for you.
It's the game for you.
So with that being said, that doesn't mean we're perfect by any means, but I believe that vision is one that we're addressing earlier than other things. Over time, in a year or two or three, we're certainly looking to address everything, but it's just, again, Rome wasn't built in a day. So for anyone who's looking forward to playing the game, I can't wait for you to try it. It's not going to be perfect, but it's our blood, sweat, and tears going into it. And I could assure you that it's not only year 1, it's also year 5, 10, that our blood, sweat, and tears will continue to go into it, because we're in this for the long haul.
All right, so last question. Yeah, I mean, you probably saw this coming. It's just going to be a quick one. I get it out for the community.
Absolutely.
So in terms of a launch time frame, what if there anything remotely that you could divulge at all, what do you feel, what time frame are you guys looking at, if you can answer anything for this soft launch?
So it depends on obviously console, right? But if we're talking about PlayStation, where we've had our testing and so on and so forth, then I feel like it's very, very, very close. Now, people have heard that subjectively for quite some time and say that that's relative, right?
I heard two varies though. The double vary is different.
I can go with 3 if you want.
Yeah.
But so with that being said, I will say that we are obviously passed by Sony's regard. We've passed all their testing. Not only that, we feel internally that we're ready to release. We're just literally crossing the T's and dotting the I's in terms of our release. So the content creators, the people who are obviously in the closed beta playing and participating, they're all in preparation for a very immediate release. Now, with that being said, that is PlayStation. What I will say as the thing that is positive for Xbox users is that once the game is released on PlayStation, it's out. So there's nothing hiding us from exposing or showing what our game is. And at that point, our immediate focus is to open the doors up for people to play the game from an Xbox perspective on its closed beta. So anyone who has an interest to play the game on Xbox can certainly do so. They would just have to come to us and request a code and go through our Discord and play in there, because we're going to use them as testers, right? They're going to find out what's wrong with the game on Xbox. But if they want to play the game, they will be able to very shortly as well. PlayStation's open release will be first. Xbox's closed beta will then be right after that, where they'll be able to play there. And the last thing to say to all of that is, again, when we release the game for PlayStation, we will do so from a soft opening perspective. And what I mean by that is, again, we've been fortunate to have 16,000 people sign up in the Discord. We've been fortunate to have thousands play the game, but that's not tens of thousands, if not millions, right? So if people play at a larger scale, we could see more issues. And as a result of that, that's where the soft open perspective comes from. Do this in strides. Again, it wasn't built in a day, and as a result of which, we're not looking to bite off more than we can chew immediately. We're looking to essentially get it out there, slow roll it out there, get people to play it. And again, that might deter people from being like, I just want it however I want it. But at the end of the day, it's about the bigger picture for us. And we need to make sure that, we crawl before we walk before we run. But really looking forward to, having the community be able to play. And again, I stress my gratitude to them for their patience.
Well, folks, you heard that here first. That was, for me, the final question on the list. Wanted to at least get that out for you guys. If you hear it from the head developer themselves, nonetheless, very, very close, folks. I'm telling you, this game is really something that should be on your radar. I've been preaching it to come hop in the Discord and get involved. I know Ray is a very busy man, so that is nonetheless where we will close this out here. We've asked him quite a few questions, got a lot of great information. I hope you guys all enjoyed it. Ray, I appreciate you coming in for the interview nonetheless. And folks, I'm telling you, you really need to get involved, get in this beta, get in contact with the devs. I honestly can wholeheartedly say that if you're somebody that really has faith in a brand new football gaming experience, it's worth investing in, whether it be time, money, whatever it may be. It's a very new, fresh perspective. Been saying it for a long time, and like I said, Ray confirmed that it is very, very close, folks. But with that being said, it has been your boy Turk here at SCN Hub, your boy Ray. Peace.
Peace.